You have received your permit, you have registered at the municipality, you have your BSN, you submit the application to open a business bank account at one of the major Dutch banks, ING, ABN AMRO, Rabobank, and you get a rejection. The rejection letter says something like, your company doesn't meet our client acceptance criteria. It doesn't say why, it doesn't say what to do, and you're now in a position where you can't receive Dutch income, can't provide income proof to a landlord, and your business cannot operate the way it's supposed to. The rejection rate for foreign-owned BVs at major Dutch banks on the first application is estimated at 40% or higher. Across the cases I work with, that figure is conservative. This video is about why it happens, what it means, and what actually works. I ran Beyond and we handle Netherlands immigration and company formation together. Banking comes up in almost every case. It's consistently one of the steps that surprises people most because it happens after the permit is approved, after the company is incorporated, after everything has gone well. The assumption is that the hard part is over. Banking is where people find out it isn't. Why this happens? KYC, AML, and regulatory pressure. Dutch banking changed significantly over the last several years, and that change is the direct cause of what you're seeing. In 2018, ING was fined 775 million euros by Dutch authorities for serious AML, anti-money laundering, compliance failures. ABN AMRO settled for 480 million euros in 2021 on similar grounds. Dutch National Bank, the DNB, made clear that Dutch financial institutions had been systematically under-resourced on compliance and that this will be treated as a structural problem, not as an isolated incident. The response from the major banks was comprehensive. Automated KYC screening systems calibrated to flag anything that looks like a high-risk client profile. The objective was reducing regulatory exposure. The practical result is that a specific type of client, a foreign-owned, non-resident directed, newly incorporated BV, now consistently triggers multiple risk flags simultaneously on the first automated screening. The risk signals the system looks for are not unreasonable in isolation. A director with no Dutch banking history, a non-EU UBO, a company with no transaction history, a director nationality from a jurisdiction on enhanced due diligence list under EU AML frameworks, a category that covers most non-EU nationalities. Any one of those signals in isolation might not produce a rejection. All of them together, hitting an automated system simultaneously consistently produces the result you saw in the rejection letter. This is not a judgment about your business. The system doesn't know your business, it's running a pattern match, and the pattern of a newly incorporated foreign-owned BV with non-resident director matches the pattern to compliance. System is calibrated to reject. What the rejection does and doesn't mean. The rejection from the automated online application is a first pass screening result, not a final determination by the bank and not a finding that your business is non-compliant. It doesn't affect your permit or your company registration. What it means practically, the online digital onboarding path, which is the major banks push first because it's cheaper for them to operate, doesn't work for your profile. The bank isn't refusing to work with foreign-owned companies as a category. The automated system is filtering them out of the digital channel. Some applicants have had success going through the major banks' business centers in person, specifically with a business advisor rather than an online form, particularly with ABN AMRO and ING. This route requires more documentation, more patience, and often a longer processing timeline. It doesn't always work and it's not reliable enough to plan around as your primary strategy. But it's worth knowing the option exists. The more reliable path is the alternative provider landscape, which has matured considerably over the last several years. What actually works? The alternatives. There are three categories of alternative worth knowing about. The first is Bunq. Bunq is a Dutch licensed digital bank, not a fintech based elsewhere with the Netherlands products, but a bank regulated by the DNB with a Dutch IBAN. For foreign-owned companies, Bunq's business banking onboarding is more accessible than the major banks. The NL IBAN matters for some use cases. Certain Dutch landlords require an NL IBAN for rent payment, and some Dutch clients or counterparties have internal systems that flag non-NL IBANs. Bunq solves that. It comes with a monthly fee. It's become one of the standard solutions for foreign-owned BVs in the Netherlands. The second category is Wise Business. Wise is not a bank, it's an electronic money institution, but it functions as a practical business account for most operational purposes. SEPA Euro transfers, multi-currency capability, integration with accounting software. The IBAN prefix is non-NL, which matters in some contexts. For a business that's invoicing Dutch clients and receiving payment. Wise handles the core function. Many foreign-owned BVs in the Netherlands use Wise as a primary operating account, at least in the early stages. The third category in Revolut Business, similar profile to Wise, electronic money institution, non-NL IBAN, strong features set for international operations. Revolut has specific limitations that are worth checking, spending caps on certain account tiers, limitations on how the account can be used for payroll, and the KYC process is not always frictionless for certain nationalities. It's a viable option, but with more variability in the onboarding experience than Wise. A practical approach applied to Bunq and Wise simultaneously. If a Dutch IBAN is important for your specific use case, prioritize Bunq. If multi-currency and international transfers are the core need, Wise. Having both operational gives you flexibility. Bunq for Dutch payments, Wise for international. One additional option for specific profiles: some specialist corporate banking providers work specifically with international and foreign-owned businesses. These are more relevant if your company has more complex transaction structures or significant turnover from the start. For the early stage, newly formed BV, Bunq and Wise cover the base case well. What to look for in a provider. When evaluating which provider to use, 4 things matter for a Dutch BV. SEPA transfers in euro. Your Dutch clients and suppliers are operating in euro in the SEPA zone. Any account you're using needs to send and receive SEPA transfers without friction or excessive fees. Recognizable IBAN. For most Dutch B2B invoicing, an EU IBAN, whether the NL, LT, BE or another EU prefix, is acceptable. Dutch clients are used to receiving invoices with European IBANs. The situation where a non-NL IBAN creates a problem is landlord rental payments, certain automatic payment mandates, and some Dutch public sector counterparties. Integration with accounting software. Your bookkeeper or accountant will need to work with your transaction data. Bunq, Wise and Revolut all have export and integration capabilities. Ask your accountant which they work with before you choose. The ability to set up direct director salary payments. Once your BV is generating revenue, you will be paying yourself a director salary. The DGA requirement. Your account needs to support regular payroll transfers. All the main providers handle this, but worth confirming for your specific account type and tier. The timing problem. I mentioned this briefly in the timeline video on this channel, the chain of steps between permit and operational that surprises people. Banking sits in the middle of that chain, and the delay there cascades. The chain: permit, approval, municipality registration, BSN, bank account, Dutch income proof for landlord. Each step depends on the one before it. If the bank account takes 4 to 6 weeks to set up, and it can, especially if you're navigating rejections and trying multiple providers sequentially, you're 4 to 6 weeks behind on income proof. In a housing market where landlords want current bank statements showing income, that delay has consequences. The practical solution is to start the banking process as early in the post-permit sequence as possible and to apply to multiple providers simultaneously rather than sequentially. Apply to Bunq on day 1. Apply to Wise on day 1. If you want to try the major banks, book the in-person business center appointment at the same time. Don't wait to see if Bunq comes through first. Running applications in parallel collapses the timeline significantly. The first account that opens is the one you operate with, the others become backup. The Dutch banking rejection is one of the most common points of unexpected friction in the post-permit process. It's also one of the most solvable once you know what's causing it and what the alternatives are. The same post-permit chain applies to HSM holders, permit, municipality registration, BSN, bank account, income proof, housing. Banking delays cascade through that chain regardless of which route got you there or got you here. The company formation checklist in the description covers the complete BV setup process, including the banking steps and what the major banks require. It explains specifically what the €500 notary quote typically leaves out, and the banking situation is one of the clearer examples. The checklist is in the description. The full post-permit chain, everything that has to happen between permit approval and actually being operational, is covered in the timeline video on this channel. I will link it in the description. Subscribe for weekly content on Netherlands immigration and business setup for non-EU entrepreneurs.